Karl Orff was a composer and music philosopher born in Munich, Germany. Orff grew up surrounded by musical influences. His father was a pianist and played many string instruments, while his mother was also a trained pianist. Orff's mother noticed his talent, as she was the main music maker in Orff's family. Because of his early music influences, he devoted much of his time to singing, making music, and writing compositions. He even focused on music so much that he grew to dislike his other school subjects. At the early age of 9, he began organ, and he continued to prosper in his musical abilities. Eventually, Orff attended the Academy of Music in Munich, Germany. He only attended for 2 years. Orff was heavily influenced by Richard Strauss, but he followed the harmonies of Schoenberg, Debussy, and Monteverdi. Karl Orff created many compositions, and in many cases he directly relates his compositions to his musical methods. Some of his works include Der Mond, or The Moon, and Die Kluge, The Clever Woman. But his most famous work was Carmina Burana, also commonly known as O Fortuna. Through his early music experiences, he discovered that music begins in the individual and should be supported with elemental music making.
What is elemental music? According to Orff, elemental music is never music alone, but music that forms a unity with movement, dance, and speech. Movement can be used in countless combinations and situations. This helps students develop a sense for spatial relationships between themselves and others, for coordinating their steps to a steady beat, and for regulating step length to their group's pace. Orff also incorporated dance in order to help students develop a greater range of movement and to adapt to working within different spaces. Individuals can also develop an understanding of what each muscle and limb can do, which builds up the courage to experiment with movement and to push themselves to see what they can achieve with their bodies. Speech is used rhythmically to stabilize sensitivity to beats and develop the sense of pattern. A well-chosen pattern in the mother tongue very naturally establishes the feeling needed to identify and execute that rhythm as a separate entity. One tool Orff used throughout his music that incorporates rhythm is the ostinato. Ostinatos are repeated patterns and rhythms that can either be chanted or sung. Orff put all his elemental music into 5 volumes of books called Orff Schulwerk. These are books for children that increase in difficulty of concepts the older the children become.
So what exactly is Orff's Schulwerk? We already learned that Orff's Schulwerk consists of a series of book volumes. However, there are a few different methods that Orff used to teach these elements of music to his children. The foundation that these various methods were built upon was the belief that music should be taught to children in a way that they can understand. Without this belief, the entirety of Orff's Schulwerk falls apart. Like we said, Orff believed in an element of play, movement, and speech in his teachings, and he really keyed in on the play aspect of his instruction. In fact, tapping into a child's sense of play was the most important part of Orff's method, and he went about doing this in a variety of different ways. One of the best ways Orff creates a playful environment is through the use of instruments. Orff instruments are generally pitched percussion instruments, but can include other types of instruments such as bongos, triangles, recorders, and maracas. In Orff's day, he would have primarily used drums, xylophones, and bourdon. But in today's classroom, it is not uncommon for instruments such as boomwhackers and handbells to be used. The use of instruments not only invites children to be creative and explore, but it also emphasizes Orff's belief in sound before sight. Orff's Schulwerk teaches students many musical concepts such as singing in tune, two-part singing, recognizing major and minor keys, and recognizing time signature. The main way that Orff went about teaching these concepts was through singing, dancing, playing instruments, composition, chanting, movement, drama, and improvisation.
Finally, in Orff's Schulwerk, there is a philosophy known as the pedagogical elements. The pedagogical elements are comprised of exploration, composition, imitation, collaborative learning, and improvisation. Each of these 5 elements allow the student being taught to take risks in their music and solve artistic problems. Instead of restricting students with rules and expectations, the teacher acts more like a facilitator or a guide. The students are therefore more free to discover music down a much more open path with the teacher guiding them through. Lessons that Orff recommended for the elements involve poems, rhymes, singing games, songs, dances, and instrumental pieces, the best example being the previously mentioned ostinato. The purpose of Orff's Schulwerk is to awaken the musical potential within every child. With the techniques and philosophies within Schulwerk, children are able to discover music near autonomously. Finally, the ultimate goal of Schulwerk is to give children the lifelong enjoyment of music.